Okay, so sorry for that. That was literally last minute people joining. That was the last minute. So now, very, very warm welcome, everybody. And I've seen most of you as you signed in, and it's really a great pleasure. And as always, it's so meaningful to be able to still be alive and to share the Buddha's teaching with you. So let's start. Let's start in the very, very best way and with a very excellent motivation. And I think most of you have been on the previous talks, so you know what that means. It means, first of all, a big mind. A big mind means an inclusive mind. And so we feel we're here receiving these teachings on the 5 stages of the path. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone. But everyone is such an easy idea because it's an idea. And so the real big mind or inclusive mind means that the people who have been significant for you in this life, and in particular our parents, our siblings, our children, our lovers, past and present, and the people who've messed you around, the enemies, the troublemakers. They are part of this life's karma. You are connected. You will be connected in future lives. They'll be back, I'm sorry to say, in some of the cases, but they will be back. And because they're part of our karma, makes them part of who we are, of our psychology. I think we all know how deeply imprinted most people have been by their parents. And so we include the human beings, the animals that have figured prominently in our life with gratitude, because it's only through their living example that we can understand this term, sentient being, living beings throughout the universe are so varied. And the only way we can get a clue of the complexity of each and every one of their minds is by the real people and the real sentient beings we meet. So we're very grateful, and we try and include all of them very specially, like we do in the refuge practice. We are here learning for them. A big mind, but then also a loving mind, whereby we do our utmost best during the hour and a half of this teaching to feel unconditional, beautiful, loving care for each and every one of them. However much you've ever loved one being, try and feel that same love for all of those you are now including. And then a happy mind, because look, we're still alive. We got this far. Soon, in cosmic terms, we'll have to start all over again. But just now we got this far. You know this much Dharma. You've done this much work on your mind, on your karma. Everything comes and goes. Everyone comes and goes. No way around that. But Dharma is forever. You are forever. You will always be you, whatever form you're in. When we study consciousness and the Buddha's real meaning, real intention about no self, it doesn't mean you don't exist. It means you don't exist in any fixed way. You are an ongoing story, and you'll be you and feeling like you non-stop, probably for the next few hundred lives. So we need to get used to that and to know that Dharma is the only thing that really lasts, that really counts. And we're so grateful for every bit of Dharma that's become part of ourselves. So with that motivation, now let's start the talk. Sonje chodon soje chonomla jancho badu dane chapsunche dagi jin soji pe sanamji drola penchara sonje droparasho samjen tamche dewa dang dewe jodang den parajoche dongal dang dongal ji jodang tralwara joche dongal me pe dewa tampa dang nen chalwara joje. Nierin chatan ne tang chalwe, tang champola ne paranjoraje. Palan sawe lama rinpoche, dagye jawara bende denshula. Kadrin champo gone jesonte, kuson toche madrup sangdo sol. So thank you. And now this is a great series of teachings. It's one of the most useful sets of teachings I ever received. I first received it in 1977, 1978 from Khenpo Sultan Jamso, marvelous teacher. And then afterwards, a couple of times from Khenchen Trungpa Rinpoche. And it is, well, it makes so much sense. And then when you go into the real, the depths and the guts of Tibetan Buddhism and where the different, like the Kagyu and the Nyingma and the Gelugpas are at, and the very depths of Buddhist philosophy, Madhyamaka, middle way, and so on. There's a different emphasis on the significance of the path. Is there a path? Or is the very idea of a path an obstacle to our awakening, and so on and so on? It gets really interesting. Anyway, I can only give you the party line of the Kamma-Kagyu, our Karmapa tradition, and the path is very, very, very important. So we'll see some of that today in the introduction. And then when we get to the fifth talk, which will have a short overview of path in Vajrayana, there we go to Jamgon Kongtrul's teachings on basis, path, fruition, and understand that the path is no path is the best path and all that kind of stuff that blows your mind. But just for today, let's start very simply. Now, I think most of you would have received the support document, which is from my study course, from modules 15 and I think module 1 earlier on, maybe 4. And so in there, what you'll find is that this path to the end result in 5 stages is a template in all Buddhist traditions. When you go into the Theravada tradition, in their main sort of practice manual, Visuddhimagga, then you find these 5 stages of the path. And not only that, the 5 stages of the path, because it's a journey, we'll see that in a minute, it's a journey where you need different tools at different stages. And the Buddha gave us 37 different tool sets. So where these 37 come in at the different stages of the path is quite vital knowledge, very useful knowledge. But that template, 5 stages of a path to the end result with 37 factors of awakening, applies to the Theravada path, where the end result is to become an arhat, to get your mind out of its suffering forever. And it applies to the Mahayana path, where the end result is to become a Buddha, and on your own way to getting your mind out of suffering, you also learn the skills and the love and the care and all the factors which will help you help others take their minds out of suffering, the Bodhisattva path. Both of them, 5 stages, 37 factors. So it's very useful knowledge. But let's go back to the very beginning. Why is the path very important? Well, if we are Buddhists, and if somebody asks you, they're talking about world religions, they say, is Buddhism a religion? You'll have trouble answering. or you should have trouble answering. And I know some of our greatest teachers, like Taisitupa and so on, they say it's not that straightforward. I think earlier on, when Tibetan Buddhism joined the modern world, then it was, no, Buddhism's not a religion. Looking in dictionaries and so on. But then what happened, and I think particularly for me, because I worked for a while with the Scottish education system about school syllabus and teaching Buddhism in schools on different levels. And that changed over the decades. It's a very fascinating story. But as the decades went by, they became very wary of teaching religious theory, different religious theories to children. And so it became much more sociological. And they say, well, they have a tick box list. Do you have buildings like mosques, synagogues, and so on, special buildings that are distinctive? Oh, yes, we do. Do you have priests who teach the people? Yes, we do. Do they dress up funny? Yes, they do. Are there ceremonies for rites of passage? Do they do things when people die, when people are born? Yes, they do. And then do you have special religious instruments? Yes, we do. Do you say prayers? Yes, we do. When you go through the whole tick box list, we look like all the rest from the outside. If you try and explain, yes, but from the inside we're different, nobody's really interested. So to all intents and purposes, seen by society, Buddhism's another. So the way to get out of that is we call it a faith. But it doesn't make much difference, faith, religion. But from the inside, then most of the world's big religions of the book or the books. And so there they are very much rooted in belief, and especially belief in an other, if the other is God or if the other is Jesus. And that belief is fundamental. You have a credo that you learn, I believe. And if you believe enough, you're saved. That's very important. And if you don't believe, you're in for trouble. God's an angry God. And so on and so on and so forth. So what the Buddha taught and what he taught us is that we are not primarily a belief system. Now, faith is very important. And in the Kagyu tradition, faith is a tool that actually surpasses all the other tools, faith. But primarily, we need to understand how it's different from blind faith, awakened faith and blind faith. So anyway, that's a topic for another talk. So it's not as though if you believe in Jesus, you're saved. And if we believe in Buddha, we're saved. And it's not even if we believe the Buddha's teaching is fine, we're saved. Buddha's prime message is you've got to do it yourself. I can't do it for you. And even if you are with the Karmapa or Taisitupa and sitting right in front of them for 10 years, you might end up no different or worse. This happens. This really happens. People can be very close to great teachers and their ego gets inflated and they don't really do the practice and so on. They don't necessarily end up better. So Buddha's message is you've got to do it yourself. I can show you what to do. I can set the example what to do, but it's only in terms of the work we each do on ourselves that we can get free from what hurts and we can stop doing what hurts others. We can find the truth of our being, the truth of everything. We have to do the work. So that work is described as a path. And so the answer to, is Buddhism a religion? Usually the sort of flashcard answer is Buddhism is a path of action. So why do we say a path? It's interesting. It's a wonderful analogy. It's wonderful. A path leads somewhere to where you want to go. A path involves changing. If where you want to go is the same as where you are now, there's no point. There's no point. So once you set your foot out the door, you're going to be going through new landscapes. Your familiarity with your environment. At home, where you went to put the kettle on, where you went to do this, all that familiarity. Now you're in a new place. In 1970, I went overland to India. 1971, I came back overland. Very difficult journey, most of it hitchhiking. You have to get used to where you are, how the people are, the facilities you have or you don't have. First, I wanted to get to India. I got there, very interesting journey. Secondly, when my money ran out, whoops, I had to get back to the UK. A very interesting journey. I was going somewhere. And you have to adapt to the new circumstances. So, and then a path is something, it is a path because it's been trodden before. In the Scottish hills, you find sheep tracks. They show you the way to go because so many hundreds of beings have found the best way and their feet have made a path you can follow. You're not going to get stuck in a bog. It's probably the best way. So the way we follow has been trodden by countless beings and they've achieved wonderful results. It's a path that's mapped. It's a path we can be guided along. So the analogy of a path, it bears sitting down and thinking about very, very much. It's a wonderful analogy. So now we're on this path. And now we can study it. And as with all these teachings, it's something I have to stay at the beginning. Remember this. We can study Buddha's teachings and you can learn so many of the facts and figures about 10 bodhisattva levels and this and that. You can become knowledgeable about a topic, the 5 stages of the path to enlightenment. But that's not the point. This is about me. It's about you. It's about the journey. Our hearts, our minds will go on to our mind's own awakening. It's so meaningful. This is about you and how you hurt, me and how I hurt, me and my limitations just now. And we'll come to that with the first stage of the path today. Recognizing who we are, human, incarnated in a body with its limitations and its wonderful advantages too. So this story of the path is about if we want to free this heart and mind from its pains and their sufferings, if we want to find the beauty of peace and stability, if we want to find the love and the skill in means whereby we can help our fellow beings more and more, then there is a journey we need to set out on. We need to be prepared to let go of our familiar surroundings. We need to prepare ourselves like a rucksack with everything you need for the journey, supplies, set out properly with the right tools, the right equipment. And then we need all the courage and all the other qualities that the 37 factors show us in order to be able to reach the end goal successfully. So we'll touch on a little bit of this. It's about the 5 stages of the whole path. It covers all the Buddhist teachings. We have 5 talks to just get some clue, some overview of what it's about. And in particular, so we know what comes first. It's a bit like building a house. The foundations have to come first before you can put up the walls. And the walls will be strong and they'll last. And then the walls need to be in place before you can put in the ceilings and the roof. And just looking at the message. And then once you've got the ceiling and the roof on, then you can start cutting the walls and putting in the electric cables. And then it's only when so much is done, you can actually decorate. And the place is beautiful to live in, and you can invite many guests to it. So there's no point trying to put the roof on first or hanging electrical cables in air. There is an order to things. Now we're talking, remember, not about some abstract path, about you and me, this mind of ours. Some things need to be in place first. And so we're going to look at these 5 stages of the way our mind can evolve in a healthy way and become mature and become stable. On the program, it's so nice to make a program. It looks so straightforward. 5 talks, and the labels for each talk are number 1, first stage of the path, number 2, second stage. That's quite optimistic. I think we'll probably need more time on the first stage of the path, because that is the one relevant to who we are now. The first and the second stages of the path are pretty much what we can do while we're still human. So stages 3, 4, and 5 are of course interesting. We need to know them, but they're not going to happen tomorrow. And we might have a little bit of a wait. So it's good to know about them, but it's like a journey, a path, a journey. The time will come for those. And so what are these 5 stages of the path? Stages 1 and 2, yes, 1 and 2. So these 2, the little finger and the ring finger, are what we can do while we are human, in the sense of human and you don't have any choice. You've been reborn human, not simply because of your bodhisattva vow, but because of your karma. You're not free from your karma. You're still in the grip of it. You still have hope and fear. The hope and fear are strong, and then through them we have the mind poisons and so on. So those first 2 stages now apply to, I just said humans, but the word in the text, it actually says the kids. In Tibetan, the word chipa means kids, the youngsters. So we can make that a bit nicer sounding, because that's me and that's you. We can say the immature, because the mind is still ego dominated. And until there is realization of the folly and the sickness of ego, then we are the immature, or like children, we are childlike. And what we take refuge in, the realized Sangha, the Buddhas, the Dharma, is what is woken up, what is mature, what has the stability, and what is free from this big drive of ego, where things are seen so dualistically. An ego can make a feast of Dharma, it can really go around spouting about non-duality in the most dualistic way. I know about non-duality. Just a moment. But anyway, never mind about that. So in the first 2 stages of the path, then we are the immature or childlike. In the third stage of the path, that is the breakthrough, when the power of ego is gone beyond forever. The fourth stage of the path is where, in the light of that breakthrough and constant connection with our Buddha nature, we are getting rid of whatever's left to be got rid of, so that we can become enlightened. And then the fifth stage of the path is enlightenment itself. It is a stage. It's very interesting, because in that stage there is our enlightened activity for as long as it lasts. So these 5 stages then, 2 while we're human under the power of karma, 1 on the first bodhisattva level. Stage 4 is the remaining 9 bodhisattva levels and Buddhahood. Now the first stage is called the stage of accumulation. And it's a name. If you look more closely, the code word accumulation means 2 things, which are opposites. Accumulating, gathering to us what we need for this journey. And then purification, getting rid of what will hamper us on this journey. So there are things to gather to us, which are wisdom and goodness, and there are things to get rid of, past karma, and our mind's harmful habits, karma and klesha. So it's called the stage of accumulation. It's the most difficult, because in the later stages, we have so much Dharma strength inside, so much clarity, so much knowledge, so much experience. We are well launched. If it was a long journey on foot, you've been walking a long time, all of your body muscles are okay, you're used to it, you're an experienced walker. Beginning's the hardest. Your poor muscles have never done this kind of thing before. You're not quite sure how to set up your tent and camp for the night and all the rest of it. You feel like going back. You feel like giving up. You wonder why the hell you started out on this journey in the first place. So much can happen. So this stage is called accumulation. We're gathering goodness to us, and the gathering of goodness requires you to get rid of your harmful habits. Goodness and kindness can't really coexist with harming. If we really want to be good people, we need first and foremost to get rid of whatever is harming inside us, harming others and harming ourselves. So purification is part of accumulating good qualities. Now, this phase of accumulation, so getting into structures and numbers, the first of the 5 stages of the path, first stage, is in itself in 3 sub-stages. Very important, very interesting. So they are called the lesser and the greater and the middling. That's easy. And each of them has 4 of the 37 factors of enlightenment. So now we're going to start looking at where we begin and the tools that we need, that we will acquire, and that we will make beautiful tools. So the lesser phase of the first stage of the path, stage of accumulation, involves the 4 foundations of mindfulness as our tools. So what's happening in this phase of accumulation? 3, lesser, greater, middling. The first phase, know yourself. The second stage, work on yourself. The third phase, take things so much deeper. So know yourself, and in the light of self-knowledge, change what's there. In the middling stage, get rid of what is a blooming nuisance, what hurts you, what hurts others, and which is an age-old habit, and which is the karma you carry, the heavy karma you carry. Good karma we carry is not a problem. So know yourself, work on yourself, but that's yourself as you are. But then we need, once that goodness is growing, to take our understanding deeper through meditation. So the upper stage, superior stage, superior phase of the stage of accumulation is taking things deeper. So first, know yourself. And now I've set up, I forget how many. Anyway, there's some Zooms coming on these 4 foundations of mindfulness. The 4 foundations, actually, if we translate the Tibetan well, the 4 foundations which are mindfulness. Mindfulness as 4 foundations. Why 4? Because our mindfulness needs to get deeper and deeper. We need to start with what's doable. We need to get the feel of mindfulness. And then once we know how to be mindful on more and more subtle levels. So now we come to this topic of Buddhist mindfulness. And I suppose when we come to the course on Buddhist mindfulness, there'll be some more highlighting of the difference between that and secular mindfulness, which is very widespread these days. What I've seen of secular mindfulness is not Buddhist mindfulness. It seems to be very, very helpful. It helps a lot of people in many different ways, and also in various institutions. It's gone into schools, into armed services to help people. Sure. But it does not correspond to Buddhist mindfulness. We must be clear about that. Buddhist mindfulness is how we set out on our path. And it involves very much this word, this difficult word, judgment, or intelligence, or wisdom, or discernment. And we need to know the difference between wise discernment and being judgmental. They are very, very different. If you have wise discernment, wise judgment, then you will know how harmful being judgmental can be. So it's a complicated topic. What I'm telling you about today is not a comparison of the two. Let me tell you about Buddhist mindfulness. Now, as you know, part of my life's work has been translating. And what came into English language over the last 50 years, translating from Tibetan as mindfulness. For instance, if a Lama tells you, Ken, you need to be more mindful, then what is the word that's in the Tibetan Lama's head? The notion that's there. And this is the problem, because there are 3 words. The actual word for mindful is, in Tibetan, drempa. That word is the same word and with the same meaning as remembering. Remembering. So when actually, literally, if somebody says be mindful in Tibetan, it means remember. And it means remember the Buddha's teaching. Or in Vajrayana, remember your guru's guidance. Don't lose the center. Don't fall away from the Buddha's guidance. Don't go into ego's lure into something else. Remember where you're going. Be aware of what your life is about. Remember, recall. So that's the actual meaning of the word that we translate literally as mindfulness. And there's another word, that's Drempa. There's another word, Shivjin, which means awareness, being aware. It's this awareness, being present with a very clear mind and being very lucid about what's happening. Awareness, which seems to be taken by many people as being mindful. They think if you're present in the moment, you're being mindful. You're not, you're being aware. You're being aware. Straightforward, isn't it? You're aware of what's going on. You're present. Being aware and present. So in Tibetan, you can put these two terms, Drempa and Shibshin, together to make Drenshi, which is a composite notion of you are mindfully aware. Remembering the Buddha's teaching while you are aware of just what's happening right now in this moment. But there's a third term which sounds great in Tibetan. It's got these kind of guttural syllables. Bayu. Bayu. I won't ask you to say it, but it's got a yu in it. And yu is always a nice sounding word. Bayu means to take care, to be a caring person. You care for using your life meaningfully. You care for other beings. So those three are all there. If a Lama says be mindful, it means take care of yourself, take care of others by being aware of what's happening and remembering the Buddha's teaching. Those three notions are compared to like three poles of a tent. You know, the three poles of a teepee hold each other up. Any one of them goes, the whole thing collapses. And so when we study Buddhist mindfulness, then we need to care. Now, something I forgot to say at the beginning of this talk. I did say that this template of the 5 stages of the path works for Shravaka teachings, Theravada, and for Mahayana. In these talks, we're looking at the Bodhisattva way. That's the one that interests us, I think. So the care is the loving care of the Bodhisattva, the Bodhisattva's commitment, the beautiful inspiration of Shantideva's words, becoming a friend, a doctor, a support for everybody, and so on and so on. So because we care, we train our minds to be more and more aware. And as that awareness develops, we learn the Buddha's teaching to see, well, what do we do with this? Now I'm aware. So I needed to say that. So now let's see how that applies to our Bodhisattva path. But before we do, then, like I said in the last talk about wisdom and skillful means, there's a problem in teaching, either the theory or the practice, in the modern world, because some things were implicit in the original Bodhisattva path and in the Tibetan teachings. They're taken for granted. And unfortunately, they're not labored every time. So this Bodhisattva path that starts with the 4 mindfulnesses, well, it doesn't really start there. What's implicit is that you've taken refuge. What's implicit is that you've understood what Buddha is. So much so that you have set your heart on becoming a Buddha, and you've probably taken the Bodhisattva vow. Now, all of those things are implicit They're not in this particular teaching of the 5 stages of the path. They are when we look at Gampopa's main textbook, of course. But when we look at the path, those first things are taken for granted. You've understood something about samsara and the mess and the illusion it is. It's so seductive, and it doesn't deliver. It draws you in, and then it punches you on the nose. There was a very funny film when I was a kid, well, not that much of a kid, in the 70s, 60s. Spike Milligan, the comedian, made it. It's called the Running, Jumping, Standing Still film, full of sketches that seemed funny at the time. They probably wouldn't seem funny these days. But throughout the film, every so often, there's a camera, and there's a big, empty dirt field, and in the far distance, you see a person, and in front of the camera, a hand comes up and beckons, saying, come, come. So you got the camera, the little hand saying, come, come. So the person in the far distance, that's one of these old funny films, does funny walking and advances 10 paces. Then you go to some other sketch, and then you come back, and the person's a bit closer. The hand comes up, come a little bit closer, all the way through the film. When you get to the last sequence of the film, and the person's right in front of the camera, a boxing glove comes and punches them on the nose. Samsara is like that. It entices, but in the end, you get a bloody nose and all of that effort to get you there. So we need to understand that the 4 ways of changing the mind. And then because of those, we turn our hearts to what is meaningful and we take refuge. But then to really take refuge, you need to know what is Buddha? What are we taking refuge in? And then what is the Dharma? It's so vast, it's so deep. And then who are these Sangha, these wonderful beings who went before us and who made this path a flat path that we can walk along safely, who can guide us, who can help us? What are the realized Sangha? And then if we set our own hearts on becoming Buddha, it's a big deal. We're going to dedicate every future life to it. So we need to know what Buddha really is, the 3 kayas, of Buddha nature teachings. All of this is implicit. It's the reason why we are setting out on this Mahayana path. And so mindfulness in 4 steps. The first one, the easiest one, it's said, because we're dealing with something very tangible and slow moving. It stays still long enough for us to get to know it, because this is about knowing yourself. We're going to have body, feelings, mind, and Dharma. So we start with body. The body is there, it's pretty solid. We can meditate on it, we can think about it. Feelings come and go so quickly. And then thoughts, mind, come and goes even more quickly. You can't say, oh, stay there for another half an hour while I look at you. It's gone. So we start with body. Now, in practice, people do mindful walking, mindfulness, with your hands, you learn to, and then be mindful. That's very sort of baby steps practice for being present in the moment. This skill we need for all the mindfulness, how to be aware. Now, in these 3 things, care, mindfulness, awareness. Baya, care, mindfulness, Drenpa, Shibshin, awareness, the 3 temples. The awareness is the meditation aspect. We are aware. Our mind is undistractedly present in the moment. Mindfulness is the wisdom aspect, meditation aspect, wisdom aspect, whereby we remember and apply the Buddha's teaching, the Buddha's discernment, judgment. Is what I'm doing harmful or helpful? Is it helping the path? And so on. Wisdom. And then Bhaya, the care, is right conduct. If you know the Buddha's teachings, these three, wisdom, meditation, right conduct, is the way we sum up the Buddha's teaching. And it's like a three-wheeled chariot that takes us to enlightenment. So the first thing we become aware of is our body. And although we do training in mindful, be present with our body, the main point of the wisdom teachings, so once we're aware of our body and aware of being embodied, then we need to become wise. Wise. That's the mindfulness part. Wise about what it is, where you are now. You're in a human body. You know, where your body is in the house you're in. And you know you can go into different houses, you can go to palaces, you can go out into the forest. You can go on a boat on the wide oceans around the world. But just now, not where your body is, but where your mind is inside a human body. And there are other existences so different. Of course, we can see animals inside their bodies. We can have some idea about what it must be like to be some of them. We can imagine. But ever since we were conceived and we left the bardo in between lives, our experience has been limited to this body. We've only known what these eyes have seen as they developed in the womb and as we were born. We've built up visual memories and what these ears have heard and so on, our five senses. The fact of being born and our mind being totally, seamlessly plugged into our biology of a body. And we study this in Tantra. It's fascinating. Energies, chakras, channels, the relationship of mind and body, the energetic bridge between the two, prana, and so on. We're in one of these things. It's very specific, so different from other life forms, and it has limitations and it has enormous possibilities. In the Theravada system, we highlight the shortcomings. Your whole being depends on guts, and we do 36 main components of the body. We realize that we're not just a pretty face, but we're also urine and phlegm and feces and guts and kidneys and all sorts of 36 main things. That's our vehicle. We're in this thing. It gets ill. It can get cold. It can get hot. It can be hungry. And it's limited to these five senses until the mind is awakened. And then these five senses can translate wider things. But generally, we're in a human body. Now, you're in a body with a biology that's like the animal's biology. If you look at the birds and the bees and what goes on in the spring, and then you look at human beings, very often there's not much different. As soon as the boy next door or the girl next door is attractive, then they end up settling down or whatever. We're in a biology. Our body is attracted to other bodies. Our body needs food. It likes some food, doesn't like other food. And our body has energies, and we sense the energies of life, the energies of situations, the energies of other people. We are so conditioned by being in this body. And being in this body gives rise to the mind poisons, which causes trouble. And being in this body gives rise to love and compassion, which can get us out of trouble. So we need somehow, in mindfulness of body, to become present with the body, so that as you're looking, you learn to see. I've done quite a bit of work in my life sometimes with film crews. They're amazing people to work with. The sound guy with the cans on, and the microphone with a kind of beard on the end. They're so sound aware. They're living in the moment. And then all of a sudden they say, cut, cut, aeroplane. And they've heard an aeroplane coming long before anyone else has. The camera person is seeing things with eyes which are so aware, so alive. So in this way, we become aware of this body and the messages that come in, and its limitations and its possibilities. Become aware. We learn the Buddha's teachings about being embodied, a precious human existence, the 36 impure substances, and so on. We become aware of body. Now, I need to speed up because the clock's going round. So then, once you have that apprenticeship in mindfulness, you care, you're aware of your body, and you're understanding more and more what it is in this little window of time of this human existence, the possibilities open to you, and how your body has a long history of hundreds of lifetimes of being, you being in a human body and developing habits. We have an amazing opportunity, but it's a huge task. So then the next thing is this apprenticeship takes us into awareness of feelings. Now, the word feelings here does not mean your feelings about the Conservative Party or about the American election. It's very, very simple. In Abhidharma, it just means you like, you don't like, or you feel neutral. Nothing more than that. Nothing more than that. It's not to do with thoughts, labeling, cognition. All of those are other skandhas, other aggregates. This is about how this body reacts. So that when you see whatever it is, a beautiful landscape, when you see another human's body, when you see food, immediately there will be feelings of, oh, nice, or, oh, ah, yeah, or most of the time, nothing happening, neutral. Now that instantaneous, habitual reactivity feelings, before we got time to think and adjust it, that immediate gut response when somebody comes in the door, you like, you don't like, or you feel neutral, and so on and so on, comes and goes very quickly. It happens in split seconds. But when we look at our life, it is very much a contributor to why our story evolved as it did. Now, especially with human relationships, human contacts, the messages coming in, the words that were said, the things we saw, the tenderness of embrace and touch and so on, but also in other areas, places we chose to live and so on. This sensorial like, don't like, neutrality is very powerful. Now, when we study the 12 links of interdependence and the Buddhist path, then we see of the 12 links, then this link of feelings is the first of the 12, I think it's number 7, where we can actually intervene and do something about it. We can reprogram our feelings. Anyway, to become aware of those is much more difficult. We need the apprenticeship of mindfulness of body to become aware of our reactivity. And so that's the awareness and the remembering the Buddha's teachings about feelings and how they trigger attachment and involvement and how they draw us into creating the stories of our life. Once we have that mindfulness of feelings, then that's the apprenticeship that takes us into a deeper level, which is awareness of thought and cognitive processes and the way that our body, the sense inputs, immediately make feelings, but then they trigger associations. What we see, we don't only like or dislike, have that gut reaction, but we label, we associate with past memories, and our mind tells stories. The story of me. the story of other. And depending on how we tell the story of me and the story of other, we get involved in karma. That's a lot of work. It goes on and on as through meditation our mind gets deeper. We become more sensitive to layers behind layers of cognitive process. And all of the Buddha's teachings about the aggregates, the aggregate of cognition, the aggregate of mental events, samskaras, the aggregate of consciousness. So we've got the 5 aggregates: awareness of body, mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feelings, and then mindfulness of cognition, samskaras, consciousness. So there we are. By the end of the first 3 mindfulnesses, you're pretty cool. You're pretty aware of who you are in the scheme of things, what goes on in Ken's life, in terms of those things, thoughts and feelings and being embodied as this white-haired, slightly strange old man. But then the 4th thing, mindfulness of Dharma, takes all of this awareness of self into the larger picture of everything and interdependence. This body and feeling and mind's relationship to all the past lives through the power of karma and interdependence. This body and feelings and mind's interrelationship with other beings, with Dharma, with a lineage, with the world, with the environment, with social responsibility. Interdependence in all of its vast implications, and in particular, the journey to enlightenment. So there today, I think very briefly, maybe I can go on for a bit more. The 4 foundations of mindfulness are where we start, because we need to know ourselves. Knowing ourselves is very important. It's not enough. It's not enough, but it's where we need to start. Otherwise, we are still laboring on in our historical, ancient delusions. We are projecting from a basis of so many assumptions which are not that good onto life and onto Dharma and onto everything. So knowing in these 4 ways is the most vital start, and it takes time. You can't fake it. You can't learn stuff from a book. This is stuff we need to learn with ourselves, inside ourselves, so that our mind awakens. So the mindfulness, remembering the Buddha's teaching, is a process in the living laboratory of our own minds, our own hearts, our own life situations, appreciating more and more the relevance of the Buddha's teachings, and then seeing this precious, precious human opportunity we have. And as Shantideva says, this like a blind person who's stumbled across, put their hand down on a pile of jewels. We came across this. Such brilliant opportunity in this life, being in this body and working with feelings and thoughts and interdependence. So the knowing is very important. Then the middling phase of this stage of accumulation is that in the light of that knowing, we change ourselves. So we get there, is called 4 factors of elimination. That's the next 4. Now, although it says that, it's a code word. There's 2 eliminations and there's 2 accumulations. It's very easy to say in words. Delightfully easy to say. So it concerns what's helpful and what's harmful. Let's start with what's harmful. Whatever is present in you. So now you're mindful, you're lucid. You know your own anger, you know your own desire, your own fears, and so on. Whatever is harmful inside you, getting rid of it. That's the first big change. I call them the 4 major changes. They're called the 4 eliminations in the scriptures. 4 major changes. Getting rid of what is harmful. I'm very present inside you. So through mindfulness, we're going to be painfully aware of this and working on it to our very best. The second one with the harmful things is whatever is harmful and not yet in you, make sure it doesn't creep in. So, for instance, you may not, let's take an example, you may not be much to speak of to start with. But then you learn Dharma, and maybe as the years go by, you become a Dharma teacher, and people look at you with respect. So maybe you didn't have too much to be proud of to start with, but then as you know more and more, and you become a Dharma teacher, pride comes in. And the thing with pride is it's very creepy and slippery. It sneaks in without you noticing. Oh, I'm not proud. Never. No, I'm not. I think I'm one of the most humble people I've ever met, really. But anyway, so it comes in. So, or maybe at first you weren't jealous, but then you move into a world where you're a Dharma teacher and there are other Dharma teachers. And people like him or her more than they like me. So what's he got? You can get jealous where you weren't jealous before. And so on. So whatever is a poison you don't have, a harmful thing you don't have, we make very sure it doesn't creep in. On the positive side, then whatever good qualities we already have, and we all have them, however kind you are, however, whatever it is, however intelligent you are, and you can assimilate information, whatever good qualities we have, we nurture them, we care for them, make them better. But then, and this is the big point of our Dharma path, whatever good qualities you don't yet have, we acquire them. And perhaps most obvious one of that is meditation skill. Most people, when they come to Dharma, don't have Buddhist meditation skill. Some have some meditation skill from other sources. And so there's so much to learn. And, Buddhist meditation is huge. So the skills or the good qualities we don't have, to learn them, then to make them stable, and then to help them to flourish, to help us on our way. So 4 mindfulnesses, knowing ourselves, lead to the 4 major changes, whereby what is harmful in us is gradually taken away as efficiently as possible, and whatever is helpful is made stronger and more stable, and more helpful. Now, if you have some experience and you've been a Buddhist for a few years, you'll know, as well as I know, and as well as the Buddha knew, and our teachers know, that a human mind is very hard to change. Our habits, so deeply ingrained, even if we manage to change a bit, is a lovely victory. So you can understand that this 4 mindfulnesses we may acquire quite quickly. But the 4 great changes may be the work of many lifetimes. So in this ideal template, we're still in this first stage, the stage of accumulation. Now we have the upper part. And it's on the basis of this self-knowing and then self-transformation that we let our mind go deeper through meditation, and in particular through shamatha meditation, where we master our mind, master the mind. That's what shamatha is for. Although we have many techniques, it's quite simple. At the beginning of our path, the mind is out of control. It takes us where it wants us to go, let's put it that way, through the power of habit. So even though we don't want to be upset, even though we don't want to be distracted, or whatever it is, it happens anyway. Even though you don't want to lust, you lust. Even though you promise you're never going to get involved in this kind of situation again, there you are getting involved again. We are the victims, the puppets. It's like puppets on a string. The puppets of our history and hundreds, thousands of lifetimes of history, different histories. So the point of shamatha is that you take control of the puppet strings. Your mind, your feelings, your awareness, your thoughts are going to go and do what you want them to do. This is the purpose of shamatha, to take control of our own minds. And it's a famous truism. It's a cliche, but it's very true. One of the things that makes samsara is people trying to change each other. It never works. Impose their ideas, make the world how they want it to be. And the big secret awakening of Dharma is that the best place to start is to change ourselves. And for that, we need to understand our mind and then make our lives in general more goodness through the four great changes. But then through shamatha, we go deep into what this mind is, and we have methods whereby it is no longer instantly pulled this way, that way. It stays where we want it. So the definition in the scriptures of shamatha is this: to maintain the mind where you want it, one-pointedly in virtue. Every word of that sentence is so meaningful, deserves contemplation. To maintain, which means that it's stable and it's under your control. To maintain what? Your mind. We need to know our mind and be able to work with it. To maintain the mind where you want it, not where it wants to take you, where you, with your bodhisattva motivation and love and care for all beings, where you want it to go. To maintain the mind where you want it. One-pointedly, which means that focus rather than scattered. And then in virtue, because you could do all of those things. Maintain the mind where you want it, one-pointedly in evil, and you would be a very, very, very nasty human being, because you would be one-pointedly focused, and the power of your evil will would be very, very effective in the world. So this is the definition of shamatha: to maintain the mind where you want it, one-pointedly in virtue. And we take control of our mind and our life with the help of the Buddhist teachings on how to meditate, how to go into meditation with the right motivation, how to meditate and all the advice in the paramita of meditation, shamatha, and then how to dedicate at the end so that we channel all the goodness into ourselves. So today, then I think I need to finish the sort of formal talk there and open it up to you for comments or for questions for the next, 20 minutes. And I hope that was of some help. Now I need